Well, everyone, I've seen a few different people kind of talk about their experience about the Apple ecosystem versus their Google ecosystem. Now, personally, I'm kind of engrossed in both. I have, obviously the whole entire ecosystem you can think of Apple products, but also I pretty much have the same exact ecosystem of Google products as well. And it just kind of dawned on me recently of some of the key differences between them, and they've already been beaten to death by tons of different people out there, and I'm not saying anything that's not out of the ordinary, but from my experience, it is actually kind of interesting how both of these devices and how both of, basically everything surrounding these devices kind of play out, and they are almost one of one, which is so interesting. Now, the thing you have to remember is within an ecosystem, it's more than just software and it's more than just hardware. It's really just the user experience of what you're using for. If you're using your iPhone, I know tons of people who have an iPhone, but they also use some, Sony headphones, or they may use even Google Pixel Buds, or they may even use Samsung headphones. And there's a ton of people, I would say a lot more people, that have an Android device or a Samsung or Google, whatever you have, and they use AirPods, or maybe they own an iPad, or whatever the case is. Most of the time, you're using, the ecosystem which you're in, but there's also tons of use cases outside of it as well. Now, from my experience, I'm typically more inside of the Apple ecosystem. So what this basically means to me is I have my iPhone that I use on an everyday basis. I have my MacBook. I have an iPad that I sometimes use. I have my Apple Watch, and those are pretty much the main things. I have AirPods that I use sometimes, but usually my main daily usage thing that I use is my Apple Watch, my iPhone, and my MacBook. More recently, though, things have been kind of changing up. I've been using my other iMac a lot more. Like I said, I've been using my AirPods Maxes a lot more too. And the one thing that I love the most about the Apple ecosystem is how everything just kind of flows into one another. I have my iCloud drive set up that when I'm recording some of this audio, the files are automatically stored onto an iCloud file drive. I can access it on all my other devices without having to drag and drop anything. I can go ahead and, automatically just put on my, AirPods Maxes, and they connect automatically. I love those types of things, and they work out so well for me in my use case. And on an everyday basis, things just work, which I love. Now, on my Google ecosystem side, I have my Google Pixels. So I have, in this case, the Pixel 7 or Pixel 7 Pro, depending on which one I carry with me. And that is pretty much the starting point. From there, at times there may be like an Android tablet I can use, like my Galaxy Tab, but that is a little bit outside of my standard Google ecosystem. Specifically looking at Google products, you have, like the Nexuses, we have the Pixel tablets that's about to come out as well. But more recently, Google has brought in a few different products that kind of keep up with other, devices. For one, they dropped the Google Pixel Buds a few years ago, and these are really good headphones. I think for the price that you're getting them for and how well they just kind of work, they are pretty close to AirPods. They're as close as you can get to AirPods without owning AirPods. And I think these are, for the value that you're getting them, for the price they are, they're pretty good. I would still say I would probably rather have AirPods over these ones, but I still like it, and I think it works out very well. Now, recently we also have the Pixel Watch. Now, this is Apple, and this is the new thing that Google's kind of pushing at us. And I will say it's going to take time for them to kind of, flesh it out and make it a better product over time. You have to remember that, this is kind of like the version 1 of this product. I think there was a lot of hype behind it, but I just kind of found that recently there's not too many people, at least from what I'm understanding, kind of still thinking about this watch, or maybe considering it even on the Android side of, watches to pick up. I think they're still kind of competing with the Galaxy watches in terms of getting people's attentions. And I think the Pixel Watch handles things pretty well. With the Pixel Watch, very similar to an Apple Watch, you can check notifications, you can reply to messages, get more health tracking in your life. And it's a really cool thing. I definitely do like the Pixel Watch a lot. So personally, I think the Google ecosystem still is kind of, in its infancy, which is so weird because Google has been there for so long. The things that they can do to kind of improve this, specific, I think, in my opinion, on the hardware side of the Google ecosystem is dropping a new, tablet, which they are doing. So there's nothing they can do there, but dropping a solid Chromebook successor. They need to drop something that's more than just Chrome OS. I think if they can, and I think they've been doing this recently, if they can make the hardware or team up with the hardware to make something better than just Chrome OS, I think they're going to need to do something there. Now, on top of that, like I said before, with Apple products, we have a suite of different hardware products we can choose from. And I think they need a good iPad successor and they need a good desktop successor. As long as they can do those two things, I think they're in good hands. But I will stay safe. From a hardware standpoint, I think Apple kind of has them beat, and that is kind of the one thing I would recommend keeping in mind there. Now, on the software front, this is where I think Google may end up kind of taking me out of the Apple ecosystem sometimes and going more so in the Google ecosystem. So what this basically means is for one Gmail account, you have access to a bunch of different things, which is beautiful. You have access to Google Meets, your Gmail account, Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Presentations, or Google Slides, whatever it's called. You have access to so many different things within your Google ecosystem. And I would say compared to Apple's ecosystem, at least like their store, actual apps that kind of correspond, you have like Keynote, you have that other Word document one that you can go and look at. But I definitely do think that, in my opinion, the Google ecosystem in terms of those products work out so much better. I think they call them like the G Suite or something like that. Those work out so much better, in my opinion, than the iCloud one. So here's a chart that I'm looking at from techjourneyman.com, and they basically mentioned that, for word processor, Apple has Pages, Google has Google Docs, spreadsheets, you have Numbers on Apple, you have Sheets on Google, again, Keynote and Presentations. Like, you're definitely, I think, in my opinion, getting better software for the most part on Google than on Apple. But you will also have to kind of keep in mind, and these are just from those applications. I do like iOS updates a lot too, but this is not those, it's just the ecosystem that we're talking about. I will say from Apple Notes versus Google Keep, I do like Apple Notes a lot more than Google Keep. So it doesn't work out every time. You also have FaceTime and iMessages that also work out a lot better on the Apple side too. But from the services and from the applications that you are getting, I do think the Google apps and services can sometimes be better than what Apple is giving us. Now, they all both have their iCloud Drive situations and Google Drive situations that you can go and buy, which is really cool. It's Google One versus, iCloud One, or whatever they call it. And I think both are great. Like I mentioned before, they work very, very well with other products. Like I mentioned, with my Apple ecosystem, I have my iCloud Drive that I'm paying like 99 cents a month, and it works out very well. I get 50 gigabytes, and I can go ahead and just store the files, like my audio files. That's really what I use it for. And it automatically syncs up to my iCloud Drive. So if I lose my MacBook, I still have a lot of my files like lingering around in the cloud. And you can do the same thing with Google Drive, but I will say with iCloud, it just works out a little bit better. Now, another thing that I do like about both of these ecosystems for the most part is the fact that when one device gets an update that's supported, the other devices get updates as well. So I think this lingers around with definitely lingers with Mac OS and, Chrome OS possibly as well. But particularly with iPhones and Google Pixels, I like the fact that when my iPhone, 14 gets an update, my iPhone 10 also gets an update at the same time. I love that so much. And Google does the same exact thing. When the Pixel 7 gets an update, it's probably when the Pixel 5 is also going to get an update in the Pixel 5a and so on and so forth. So that's another really cool thing that I like about them. The fact that they're willing to keep pushing out updates for all these devices, I think personally is really awesome. And that in and of itself makes me very happy about both of these specific devices. Now, when it comes down to which one is the better ecosystem, there really isn't a better one, I would say. There's a lot of people who are going to mix and match. I mean, if you have an iPhone, you're using a bunch of Google services. If you have like an Android, or if you use a Google product, most of the time you might be using, Apple services as well, or maybe you even own Apple hardware in that case as well. If you own a Pixel 7, you might be using AirPods, you might own an iPad, you might be using a MacBook, who knows? So personally, I think all these devices work very well hand in hand, even when they're mixing in with each other. I don't really think there's a one that's like a, clear winner, but hopefully it kind of breaks it down for you a little bit further of, the differences between these two. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. Let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.